People think the forest is empty at night, but there are places where the snow doesn't keep sound out. It keeps things in. Across North America, hikers, soldiers, rangers, and hunters have reported the same impossible detail. A familiar voice calling their name from where no one should be. These are not legends. These are the cases no one wanted to file. And tonight, you're about to hear why winter is not the most dangerous thing in the woods.
Winter changes the world in ways most people never feel. The forests breathe more slowly. The snow absorbs sound until even your heartbeat seems loud. And somewhere inside that silence, things listen back. For centuries, indigenous communities across North America have spoken of a hunger spirit, a figure that emerges in winter, tall, gaunt, hollow, born from starvation and forever searching for the next voice to mimic. Winter, the hunger born in winter. To the Algonquin nations, the Wendigo is not simply a monster. It is a manifestation of hunger taken shape, a spirit born whenever a person confronts the unthinkable to survive winter's cruelty. It grows with each human life it consumes, yet it is never full. It can mimic voices with unsettling precision, move silently through deep snow, appear as someone familiar until the face begins to rot away. But the detail that scholars often overlook is this. The Wendigo isn't described as rare, only quiet, waiting behind the tree line. The ranger who heard his name. Our first encounter takes place in northern Minnesota, where a veteran park ranger patrolled a winter trail he knew by heart. The night was clear, silent, routine, until something called his name. It was his brother's voice, precise, familiar, and impossible. His brother lived hundreds of miles away. The ranger froze, scanning the woods. Something tall slipped behind a trunk, too quickly, too silently, too smoothly to be human. He approached with caution. The world around him felt wrong, muted. Then he heard it, breathing, slow, deliberate, shifting side to side, mirroring his movements. Every time he moved the flashlight, the sound repositioned, always out of sight, always just beyond reach. As snow began to fall, he heard footsteps behind him, but the snow beneath his boots showed only his own tracks. He resigned weeks later. To a close friend, he confessed, "Something in those woods learned my name and said it back." Cabin whispers. Caught in a sudden winter storm, they found an old trapper's cabin barely standing, but warm enough to survive the night. Around 2 a.m., one of them sat upright. He heard a whisper coming from beneath the floorboards. The voice sounded human, freezing, desperate. It echoed upward between the cracks of the old boards. The men grabbed flashlights, searching for a basement entrance. They found a trapdoor they hadn't noticed before, damp, old, and nailed shut. The voice returned, louder, more urgent. "Let me up." They pushed a table over the trapdoor and sat against the far wall until morning. But the real horror appeared at dawn. Massive humanoid footprints circled the cabin in a perfect ring. No prints approached from the forest. No prints continued into the woods. It was as if something walked in a perfect circle, waiting for one of them to step outside. The Night Runner. A Montana hiker enjoyed evening runs along a rural forest road. He knew the path well, every turn, every slope. But one night, something moved parallel to him inside the tree line. It matched his pace perfectly, step for step, stride for stride. When he slowed, it slowed. When he stopped, it stopped. Then it moved closer, revealing a tall, elongated silhouette crouched low in the brush. When he broke into a sprint, the figure accelerated effortlessly. No sound, no crunch of snow, just smooth, impossible motion. It sprinted ahead of him, stopped in the path, and watched. He turned and ran home along the highway instead, and never returned to that trail after sunset. The military perimeter. In 1899, a Canadian border patrol set up camp in a remote winter valley. Each morning, they woke to enormous footprints surrounding their tents. 6 feet apart, humanoid, but stretched and naturally long. For 7 nights, the prints returned, always circling, never approaching the firelight. On the 8th night, soldiers reported something brushing against their tents. Rifles ready, they waited. But whatever circled them never stepped into view. The report was filed as Unresolved Phenomena, Winter Unit. Soon after, the case disappeared from official records. But soldiers continued telling the same story for years. Something walked around their camp, patiently, methodically, as if measuring them. Let me in. A man house-sitting for his uncle was reading near the fireplace when someone knocked on the cabin window. 3 slow taps. He assumed it was a neighbor until he saw the figure. 8 feet tall, emaciated, skin cracked from frost, eyes faintly glowing like dying coals. Then it spoke. Let me in. The voice was wrong, human yet distorted, as if replayed through broken vocal cords. When his uncle arrived minutes later, the figure vanished instantly. The Cold Lake Prospectors, 1904. In winter of 1904, 2 prospectors set up camp near Cold Lake. Their fire was still warm, their tools lay scattered mid-use, their bedrolls untouched. But the men were gone. Local Cree trackers were called in. Upon seeing the footprints, elongated, deep, human-shaped, they refused to continue. They warned the patrol, you follow that trail, you meet the eater of winter, the thing in the tree line. A young hunter gathering firewood heard rustling behind the trees. Then a voice, his relative's voice, a relative who had died months earlier, the face slowly forming from darkness. Then the smile tore apart, skin peeled from bone, the eyes caved inward. In moments, the face decayed into a hollow skull crowned with antlers. The creature snarled, suddenly attack. Only his brother's screams and gunfire forced the creature to release him. Both men saw it clearly. Tall, skeletal, ribcage exposed, antlers crooked like broken branches. It didn't flee. It simply watched them escape, as if letting them go.
The stories you've just heard are not isolated. There are more cases like these. More people who heard voices that shouldn't exist. More nights when the forest went silent and something listened back. Some of those accounts have never been shared, not because they aren't real, but because the people who lived them don't want to remember. If these cases matter to you, if you want to hear what others were too afraid to tell, subscribe. Because the next stories don't come from legends. They come from people who are still out there, trying not to listen when the woods say their name.